was desperate, at the time I was 17, 18, unemployed, and I was desperate to get a break. And I knew that if I did get a try, I would grab the chance.
I think it was always going to be boxing. The minute I stepped into the gym as a 10 or 11-year-old, boxing just took hold of my heart straight away. I love everything about the sport of boxing.
Hello, I'm Marie Crowe and this is We Become Heroes, the RTÉ Sport podcast that explores how elite athletes and sports people reach the top of their game and the lessons that they learned along the way. I'm delighted to say that my guest today is one of Ireland's most decorated footballers, former Manchester United and Republic of Ireland player John O'Shea. John, thanks a million for coming on. How are you and how is life?
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for having me on. All good. We're adjusting to life back in Manchester again. We moved back up with the family. So
is coaching then, John, what you see yourself doing for the rest of your life or for the immediate future anyway? Because it's really hard when you're still so young to be embarking on a new career.
Yeah, well, look, that's what I was kind of preparing myself for, Marie, a little bit towards the end of my career, playing wise, and obviously having that experience now I've had with Reading the last couple of seasons. It was fantastic, eye-opener for me in terms of the other side, the preparation that goes in and the hard work that's done in the background to get teams ready and players prepared for the game. So this gave me a good taste of it, and obviously being involved with the 21s is another fantastic experience too. So the more little things like that I can build up and educate myself with, along with the pro license and the course I'm doing with UEFA too. So keep myself busy and trying to prepare myself to hopefully be a manager or head coach one day, as they say.
Was it surprising to you? Was there anything surprising to you about it when you did kind of make that transition from player to coach that you didn't know or that you weren't expecting?
I suppose when I've been a player for so long, you do take it for granted, as in, obviously there's a good bit of detail, but when you're actually involved in it yourself and preparing it yourself, it's you really appreciate the work that goes in, whether it be the physios, the analysts, the all that side of it. You really appreciate the skill that they have, and obviously you're trying to get little bits from them and improve yourself IT wise, not only just obviously coaching on the pitch. There's a lot of coaching done off the pitch now too, so you have to upskill yourself as best you can.
The Irish public, I think the majority of them anyway, have accepted that Stephen Kenny is trying to do things a certain way and he has a philosophy that he would like to implement. He's got huge belief in his players, and we're seeing some of the fruits of that on the pitch anyway. Didn't get quite a lot of time with them, but it is starting to improve. Just the fact now that you're bringing the next crop through, John, do you see what he's doing and think, right, we're going to have the players at underage level to be able to replicate what they're doing at senior level and ultimately develop players to eventually fit into the system that he wants to play?
Yeah, exactly. And look, the key thing is, Marie, behind it all is what they do at their club level too, because obviously the short amount of time that international managers international staff have to work with their players is it's tough in that sense, because they're coming in now to those 3 games in a short period of time. So it's not as if you're going to get loads of time to work with them on the pitch, on the training pitch as such, because there's going to be recovery involved and stuff like that. So that's what we're talking about, the tactical side off the pitch in terms of video meetings and analysis and all that kind of stuff. So it's a different kind of preparation, but the key thing for the players coming through now is progressing at their clubs. And if they can progress at their clubs and get first team football, I think that's the huge thing for Irish football going forward, because there is some exciting talent, as we've seen already in the senior team, and I'm sure there'll be a few more coming through very soon too.
We're not seeing so many though at Premier League level. It's different than, I guess, your generation now. It is probably a generation ago at this stage. Is that a worry, do you think, that maybe we're not going to have the standard of international teams because we're not going to have players playing at that very top level, just because there's an influx of players now from all over the world, whereas traditionally there was a lot from England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, maybe closer to home?
Yeah, look, the competition has increased. I think that's clubs you go down even to the championship level, the recruitment side of things, or where they're going to scout and fielding calls from agents from all over the world to kind of get themselves into the championship, don't mind the Premier League. So the competition has increased dramatically, but also look, you have to understand that the Irish players have to rise to that challenge too and accept it, I suppose. And I think that might come back to the club that they choose maybe first, in terms of where they can break through a bit quicker and get the chance to be seen and playing first team football that bit quicker too. So it's a tricky one, because you want to give yourself, if I'm looking from a parent's point of view, your son or daughter, the best chance to go to the club that has the best coaching and the best facilities type of thing, where they think they can get the best chance to improve and become the best professional they can be. So it's a tricky one, but hopefully, as I said, I think we've fingers crossed, we look as if we're on the right line of producing another good crop of youngsters that can be competitive at Premier League level.
Yeah, hopefully anyway. Okay, John, let's get into our set questions. So what's your first memory of sport?
First memory of sports. Well, it would have been, I think the big one for me properly would have been, I think, FA Cup finals, in terms of just what I did on the streets from where I was down at Ferrybank, where I grew up, in terms of the atmosphere. Not also just, look, it was any kind of sport, in the sense of, if it was Wimbledon, it was tennis. It was tennis for a week, 2 weeks. It was hurling, Gaelic football, the finals. Obviously, Waterford, they were getting close to All-Ireland finals when I was growing up. But and the Gaelic football side of things, that kind of came with school more so rather than summer. But the first kind of clear memories I had in terms of with Ireland would have been Euro '88. That would have been the first kind of outstanding memory I had of obviously a major tournament, and obviously there was a good run of tournaments to come then as well after that. So that would have definitely got a bug for me for the football then.
So who were your heroes growing up then? Who were the people that you had stuck up on the wall?
Paul McGrath would have been definitely one. Paul was a big role model for me, in terms of his I suppose his calmness on the pitch, and how he never looked under pressure. Paul would have been, say, on the Irish side of things, growing up, and then it was weird because of the Italian football on Channel 4 on the Sundays. That would have been a chance to see a lot of the AC Milan players at the time. That good AC Milan team we were talking about. There would have been Baresi and Maldini, Costa Curta, all them guys that seemed to play on forever. So those guys, and even there was a German player, Matthias Sammer, who just caught the eye from. He played at the back, but also could play in midfield. He was one as well that stood out. But from an Irish point of view, it was always Paul McGrath.
So what stage then did you realise that you had talent for sport?
I suppose you would have sensed. I would have sensed I had a talent when I was playing underage. Say, I might have been 10. How old was I? 10 or 11, and I was kind of playing under 12s and the 13s. I was always playing. My dad was obviously heavily involved in football with Ferrybank, and I used to play on quite a few teams below my few years below, shall we say. He used to stick me out on the right wing because I was fast, believe it or not, Marie, for a good while. So no, look, that's when you start to realise, okay, I must be doing something okay, because obviously you think the other players might take a bit of offence to it as well. This young fella coming along and playing, but I was obviously doing okay. And then when you get to under 14, 15, that was for me when I kind of realised, okay, there might be a chance here to do something to get recognised, playing for Waterford. And then if you get the chance to play for Waterford, the Kennedy Cup team, you might get international recognition, that type of thing. But when I was that little bit younger, I wouldn't say I definitely recognised in my head that it was a clear talent, but I was just fortunate. The school I went to and the club I was at, De La Salle, the school De La Salle, that they encouraged me obviously so much on the sports side of things too, as well as the education. So I think that was a big factor for me too.
Were you playing other sports at that time, like when you were a kid?
Yeah, Gaelic football. I did a little bit with the hurling, Marie, I have to be honest. I think my dad was a Kilkenny man, and obviously he was huge into the hurling. But when he worked in Waterford Crystal all his life, and early when he went up to catch a ball one day, someone pulled across his hand, and he was out of work for a couple of months. So that put him off hurling for a while, and obviously he maybe thought, well, this fella can skip the hurling too, the hurling training. So no, I loved the Gaelic football, and I probably had to stop playing it then when I got to 15, 16, because obviously then it was starting to get a little bit serious on the football side of things. But in the Gaelic, I was full forward or centre midfield. That was me two positions. Mainly full forward for the school, and club it was midfield.
So you were always versatile then, even when you were young.
Yeah, well, some of the teachers even in football were trying to get me to play up front as a striker for the school team at times too. So they knew I was up to something.
At what stage then did you start to think about having a professional sports career, professional football career, and start thinking about what you needed to do and how you were going to get there?
Yeah, it would have been. Probably would have been when I was 16, and the first club that kind of asked me over for a trial to the UK was Queen's Park Rangers, and they had a couple of guys. David Whittle was there from Waterford already, so they had a kind of a connection to Bowes in Waterford. So they invited me over for a trial, and I was there a week. And they called me in and said they wanted to offer me a 4-year contract. So, and I was only 16 at the time. So it was a little bit crazy. And obviously my mum and dad thankfully they were calm about it. I would say my mum was a lot more calmer, but my dad was a bit like, well, we might have to take that, that's what an incredible kind of, you're offered 4 years, 2-year YTS contract and a 2-year professional contract. I say my mum was a lot calmer, but she just didn't want me to leave home. She was like, you're not going anywhere.
I'd say so.
But no, we spoke to, my dad was able to get Kevin Moran's number, and Kevin obviously became my agent then, and long-term advisor and good friend. So we got the advice Kevin just basically said, look, if they're offering him that after a week, there'll be more teams involved going forward, and take your time. And basically we stuck to that advice, and it was thankfully proved to be good advice.
I'd say though, when you're telling a 16-year-old who's mad to go, I'd say, and mad for road to take his time, it's probably hard for your parents as well.
Yeah, it would have been. I think that's where obviously they took Kevin's advice on board, and other people as well. But I think as well I was doing okay in school, education wise, so they were probably thinking, right, well, I was kind of coming into my leaving cert, so let's get that done at least, and then you can maybe off you go. Then we'll see what's around in a year's time.
I know that every kid is different and every situation is different, but when you just take into consideration the path that you went on, and then think of all the young kids that went over and ended up coming back 6 to 8 months, a year later, when they were so young. Looking at the generation now, I know there's Brexit and it's a little bit different, but what do you think is the best thing for young kids now aspiring to one day have careers in football professionally? What do you think they should do?
It's exactly a little bit what you said, Marie, in a sense of every case individual. But I think the more maturity a kid has, the better chance they have, because obviously you're going into such a fierce competitive environment of, everyone's your friend and everyone's your enemy almost. initially, because there's only so many players can get promoted up from the youth team to the 23 team or the B team and reserve team, as they can be called too. And as you said, the increased competition then from across the world. So it's such a fierce environment. But I think the clubs have a much better understanding now as well of the education side of things. It's improving. They still have more work to do, but they realise that the fallout from the youth teams is quite big, and the PFA. And to be fair, lots of players in the FAI or have come back towards the FAI and the League of Ireland teams, and have been able to get back across again to the UK, but also have good careers in the League of Ireland too, and go into coaching and that side of things too. So there has been a good pickup in that, and I think that'll get better and better as the years go by.
Are you a fan of the League of Ireland? Do you follow it?
Yeah, good fan of the League of Ireland. Look, lots of my friends, obviously, when I can, go out and see the Blues play. Obviously, their new man in charge has picked up the fortunes quite good recently, and hopefully that continues. You know, he seems to have got a good buzz going there again. And I was going to call them old stagers, but I can't be calling them old stagers. Brian Murphy and Eddie Nolan have fitted back in well too to the club too. So that'll be big going forward, because they'll be able to explain, because they've, I believe, quite a young team as well, and they'll be huge help to the manager there too.
Would you ever give management in the League of Ireland a shot? Management is a journey; it can take you anywhere, and it's a long one.
No, it is without a doubt. I wouldn't rule it out, Marie. It's not something, as you said. When you look at the amount of managers that are in football, in terms of whether it be the League of Ireland Premier League, the League of Ireland First Division, then you go Premier League Championship. It's small numbers, you know. So you have to get in there somewhere along the line.
So, look, you said there, when you go into these ultra competitive environments, everyone's your friend, but they're your enemy as well. You managed to not only survive, but thrive and make it to the very, very top, which is such a rare thing for anyone, really, you know, not just somebody coming from Ireland. You know, it's the numbers that try to do it are massive. The numbers that make it are absolutely tiny. What do you have that allowed you, enabled you to do that?
I suppose, Marie, the big one in my head, and I would have hoped it would have been consistency, and reliability. I suppose they would have been the two big things, because obviously it's that competitive nature of the sport, but also doing the work off the pitch in terms of how you're resting, how you're eating, how you're preparing, making sure you're fit for every training session, making sure you're available for every game, and all those things behind the scenes, that the unnoticed work, shall we say, that people obviously only see it or midweek or at the weekends, but it's behind the scenes of how you're looking after yourself, and that professionalism off the pitch, I suppose, as well, is a big part to it. So, but you need to have that bit of luck along the way, but it's that key of being ready for that, maybe that bit of luck when it drops your way, that you've done all the work and you're able to take a chance. And look, having a competitive, having a steeliness about you, but also there's nothing wrong with good manners along the way too, but knowing that you're able to compete and mix it was obviously a key attribute too. And look, I had good loan spells. I think they were key for me too, when I was able to go out and get experience of playing league football. One in England and obviously one over in Belgium too. So that was a big help to me.
So confidence and a little bit of cop on as well seems to go quite a long way. So what did you, when you were, I suppose, look, you were on the pathway and you were trying to make it as a footballer, and you knew you wanted to be one. What did you have to work on most in your game when you were on that pathway to succeed?
There would have been a wide range of things. I remember I'd gone over to Liverpool actually on trial, and they'd wanted me to come over. It was the year I was doing the leaving cert, and they wanted me to come over every weekend to play in like a U team game type of thing, and obviously maybe sign then after the leaving cert type of thing. But I couldn't commit. I couldn't commit to that, and they kind of said, okay. They sent me a lovely letter, and it was keeping tabs on talent, and tabs was technique, attitude, balance, and speed. That's what it stood for. They had it written at the bottom of it. I think at the bottom of the side of the letter. And so those things at that age, the technique, from what I'd seen, because obviously I hadn't been in an academy structure. I was getting obviously very good coaching off people down in Waterford, and when I'd got involved with the Irish setup, but you're not in I wasn't in an academy structure from such a young age, and that's another subject. You're going to get kids that will flourish early, and you're going to get the late developers type of thing. But I think the thing for me when I went over to the UK, first and foremost, I saw the technique that lots of the kids had that maybe I needed to obviously keep working on in terms of left foot, right foot, being just as good as or improving the weaker foot, not just focusing on the weaknesses in your game type of thing. That would have been a key thing I picked up early. And once I got back to Ireland and eventually signed with United the first couple of years, that was the main thing I worked on, just improving the weaknesses.
Did you want to sign with Liverpool before you signed for United?
Celtic would have been the one that got in the way of that. I was very close to signing for Celtic. I enjoyed my time over there at Liverpool, but it just didn't. I don't know why. It just didn't feel right, or didn't. It's just the timing of things, I suppose, Marie. That's why these things happen or don't happen. But Celtic were brilliant. They were kind of doing everything they could to get me there, but it was just United came in at the last minute. And so, like Jim Goodwin, Liam Miller, the lads that were there at Celtic too. There was a good Irish contingent there too. So it was.
I mean, this is a compliment now, but like it must have been hard enough, like to keep your ego in check when you had all these huge clubs trying to get you to come and sign for them.
Yeah, look, it was a strange one. At the time, I think my mum and dad were counting some of the contacts or letters and different things. I think at one stage it was 18 clubs had either offered or been interested in something. And I'll never forget when I was at United in the canteen one day, every so often the United scouts from around Europe would be in the canteen. The manager would have them over either to watch training and obviously get a progress report on maybe players they'd been watching around Europe, or younger players. I don't know. But this one Dutch guy came over to me and dropped a piece of paper down that my dad had written down. He'd been watching me play in the European Championships. I think it was either the Euros that we won or one of the competitions after it. No, it must have been the Euros, because then I signed for United afterwards. Just that my dad wrote down, say, my date of birth, age, type of thing, just a few details. And the Dutch scout, he was with PSV at the time. He was wanting to get me over to PSV to go over there, but I didn't manage to make it over to PSV. But he ended up working for United as a scout years later and still had the slip of paper. It was a strange one. Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah, it's nice. It is nice to look back now at it.
Yeah, it's a big thing. I think that's where the respect you gain, obviously, in terms of the coaches that you have. You look back at that, and obviously when you get a little bit older and you realise the coaches, whether they were a bit firm with you at every level, whether it be school or there's different ways to do coaching, but I was fortunate that every way along the way there was someone with good advice or good training to things for me to learn from as well. But obviously my family too were a big support, and that's what he said. That's what I mentioned earlier about every case is different for whether you go over at a younger age or that little bit older.
So was there a moment when you thought, okay, I've made it here, like I'm on the pitch with the best players in the world, doing amazing things, winning at the top level. Like, I belong here. I am one of the best. Like,
look, it was strange in the sense of, when I first got into the team, the quality, obviously the first Premier League title that I won, in 02-03, and we'd come back to kind of chase down Arsenal. And I think I played in nearly over 50 games, including the league and Champions League and stuff. That was incredible. And that, look, when you're involved and play so many games, that's when you realise you're part of it and you're having an impact. That's when it's really hitting home. But also, bearing in mind, I'd seen the players of maybe 1 or 2 years after the treble, after United had won the treble, that the changeover in the squad. So you're under no illusions that there's just going to be, you got to stay on top of things, because you'll soon be replaced, or there'll soon be a younger player coming in to challenge you. So you had all those things in the back of my mind, knowing, okay, it's only the start, but it was a hell of a start, and it was amazing to be involved in.
Yeah, it was a hell of a start, and it was a hell of a career as well. So when you think of sports people, most, not all, I actually find it really interesting doing this podcast. Some people have had no setbacks at all in their career, but most people have had setbacks that they've had to overcome, whether it's injury, not making a squad or a team, or just something that happened to them when they were a young child. For you, what was the biggest setback that you had to overcome?
Biggest setback, I think it was, well, we were spoken about playing for Waterford, getting on the Kennedy Cup team, and I managed it. We got to the way the Kennedy Cup was run. I think it was the last year of it, where you had the regionals, and then you got to a semi-final. So the top 4, say, counties would play off over a weekend, and generally then the Irish under 15 squad was picked from basically those 4 teams, and it was Waterford, Galway, North Dublin, and the DDSL. We were the 4, and we'd lost to. Cut a long story short, we lost in the semi-finals anyway. But basically, then someone had told my dad that I'm going to be in the under 15 Irish squad. So of course, absolutely buzzing. But it was all a bit hush hush. That you got a little wind or something. I think it might have been Pat Kelly, who was he'd be well known in schoolboy football around Ireland, and Pat just happened to he got wind that I was in the under 15s, and it turns out when the squad was announced, there was no sign of Mr. O'Shea in the squad. So it was one of them. At the time, I was absolutely gutted, but I think deep down it actually probably helped me I don't know, relax, or maybe not panic, or I don't know what really. It probably just made me think, okay, maybe a little bit in the background, I'll show you that I should have been in the squad. I don't know. But at the time, I just think, okay, I was devastated for a few days, and then I just got on with things, and maybe it did just give me that little bit of hunger, and to go. And when, I think it was when the change of dates went back to the 1st of January, so you can be underage from a certain. So in the following year, I was eligible for the under 15s again, and I was picked, and managed to work my way through the Irish setup and get a few caps along the way. So no, look, it was that would have been a big setback. And the only other one I would say was because it was the game to get injured in against France in the playoff game, the World Cup game, when I got injured, and it was the longest injury I was out for too. I got a myositis in the middle of my quad muscle, and it kept me out for 4 months. So obviously I had to dwell on that game in France for quite a while, but also in the meantime, there was younger players coming through at United that were getting a chance then to be involved in the first team, and maybe Sir Alex is thinking, okay, these lads are doing okay too. So when you're out of sight, out of mind, and as I've spoken about earlier, it's so competitive that these short windows can prove costly.
Yeah, they sure can. So When you look back then at everyone that you encountered along the way in your career, not just your football career, actually, just in life, who had the biggest impact on you and on your career?
Look, it'll be my dad first and foremost. But then I'd say obviously Sir Alex would be obviously very much high up there. But my dad, just from the fact of the support and, shall we say, constructive criticism along the way growing up, would have been a big factor. And then also the fact, look, my mum behind the scenes too would have been your family first and foremost. The support I had from my big brother too. He was, as much as he claims his left foot is a lot better than mine, but it wouldn't have been too hard at that age. No, but look, your family first and foremost were huge for me. But my dad, obviously sacrificing so much in terms of obviously the usual, driving to training and games and all around the country and stuff like that. So that would have been a huge thing. But then when Sir Alex, realising the challenges I needed at certain stages in my career, would it be the loan spells and having the courage to say, no, look, this is what you need and don't worry about what other people are saying in terms of they'll think you're finished at the club or different things. We know why we're doing this is for you to develop and be ready for the first team. And if you take those challenges on, it'll help you get into the first team. So all those things were crucial at the time when you look back on it now.
Yeah, it sounds like you were lucky that you had the right people around you, and that doesn't happen to everybody. And I think it just shows the value of environment as well. And it's something that's cropping up quite a lot now when people are talking about footballers developing and just the importance of having those right structures in place from the home to the club and whatever along the way. So when you look back at your career and all of the great days that you had, and you think about the footballer that you wanted to be, is there a performance that defines you that you go, right, I was just brilliant that day?
Look, it's a tough one to really nail, that one-off performance, if you know what I mean, in terms of where it all fell into place. When you're thinking of look, obviously there's individual little glimpses in the sense of when I scored for Ireland on my 100 cap against Germany. That was incredible to do it that night against the world champions. Then I'd have winning any Premier League is amazing, but to get the chance to win 5 of them, be involved in winning 5 Premier Leagues and basically in 9 years involved with the first team. So, and then you're reaching the pinnacle of European football. Obviously, we ran into a not so bad Barcelona team, unfortunately, but scoring a winner in the semi-final of the Champions League against Arsenal at Old Trafford in the first leg, winning the European Championships with Ireland under 16. That was an amazing achievement, and that gave me a lot of confidence too behind the scenes with Brian and Brian Kerr and Noel O'Reilly. So there was amazing moments, and too hard just to pin one down.
You're so calm about it all, just the 5 Premier Leagues and this and that. Obviously, it's the type of personality that you have, though.
Yeah, look, and I think it's helped me. It's helped me along the way to have a steadiness, but also knowing that there's a competitor in there too that's going to challenge too.
When to bring it out. So, what do you think will be your legacy then?
Look, I hope, as I mentioned, some of the traits earlier in the sense of reliability, consistency, having that calmness, being a good teammate. Also, obviously, look off the pitch, hopefully doing things right in terms of family-wise too, being a good example in that sense too. So hopefully that's an important side of things too. You can't forget about that. But in terms of on the sporting side of things, hopefully there'll be a few more things to come, right?
When you look to the future, do you see yourself one day managing the Republic of Ireland at some stage or a club team?
Look, that's the dream scenario. Yeah, look, that's if you're going to get into management, which I want to do. That's ultimately the aim, isn't it? To manage our country. To have that honor would be amazing. But you have to earn the right to get there. It'll be the pinnacle without a doubt. But obviously, you have to earn your stripes and get out there and get into club management too, and learn the hard way. And I look forward to it. And that's why I'm hoping to obviously get into that at some stage down the line. But obviously, enjoying what I'm doing at the minute, learning and trying to improve.
Well, you're on the way anyway. And if your football career is anything to go by, I'd say the management career is going to be just as impressive. John O'Shea, thank you so much for joining us here today. And thanks as well for the brilliant career. To be able to look at an Irish player playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world and consistently performing as well has been great for so many people growing up as well. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who'd love to follow in your footsteps, and also all those great days out you gave us with the Republic of Ireland. Thank you for all of them. And thanks everybody for listening and watching. Please like, subscribe and leave a review.